Part 8.3, validate command object. So this part, we will look at the validation part. We know the command object is configured with the controller, the special controller. Also, there is a special class called validator class, also configured with that particular controller. In this part, we will look at how to use that validator class to do the validation. All right. Validate command object. The idea here, a special way is used to do the validation. The idea is separate the validation from business logic. So you can think about the old way when people do the validation in their business classes. When they get a data, they just put the validation logic. Check the data if it follows the required format. If not, return some error messages. But that way is not very good. So that way has a lot of disadvantages. So this new way is much better than the old way. So why this way is better? So let's look at the advantages. First, the first thing is make your business service classes focus on the business logic. In your business service classes, you just assume all the data is valid. You just apply your business logic directly on the data. So that will make your coding much easier, right? Much easier. And you leave the validation to a special class called validator class. So this kind of separation, first, make the programming easier, and second, support reusability. Reusability. Why reusability? Because make your validators more reusable, especially for those commonly used validators. Validators more reusable. So that's one aspect, because some of the validators are commonly used frequently. For example, telephone number validator, email validator, zip code validator. So a lot of special types of validations we need to use repeatedly. So in this situation, so we can reuse. Another thing, we can also make your business service class more reusable. Why? Because you do not need to do the validation part. You just work on the business logic. So in that situation, if that particular business service class could be used in a different project, then you just use it. All right. Then another advantage, also very useful, make testing easier. Make testing easier. This kind of separation, if you want to test a validator, you do not need to touch any business service class. Otherwise, if the validation logic is inside a business service class, when you do testing, you only want to test the validation part. That may not be that easy, right? All right, so this idea, we can treat as a big improvement. But later, we feel this solution is not the best. We can still do better than this way. Yeah. So when we move to the current version of Spring MVC, we want to improve this validation part furthermore. Yeah. So the problem to be solved first, this validator is not a Pujo, plain old Java object. I talked about this concept before, plain old Java object. Remember? Yeah. The meaning is simple. Yeah. A Java class can be compiled by the JDK, then we can treat it as a Pujo. Yeah. Because this type of Java classes are highly reusable. Yeah. Whenever you put in any Java environment, you know, you can use those Java classes, the Pujo. Yeah. But the validator we use here, it needs to implement a special Spring interface. So for that reason, it is not a Pujo. Then its reusability may not be very good, or its reusability is limited. So that is a big disadvantage. Yeah. So for improvement, we want to use the annotation type validation. Remember? Yeah. We will use annotation type configuration. So when we switch to the annotation way, at the same time, we also want to do validation using annotations. Yeah. So that's the future improvement. Yeah. We will see that part. Another thing is, if we do that, the command object mechanism also will be changed. Yeah. Command object also be changed in order to connect to annotation way. Yeah. So this part still, we need to learn a lot of new things later. Yeah. Here we just, leave that part temporary there. Yeah. Next, let's look at the details of validator. So we try to understand some concepts. Yeah. The typical validation logic here. The code is not long, but a lot of things to be explained. First, our validator, called a user validator, need to implement a special interface called a validator interface in Spring. Yeah. So that's the reason it is not a Pujo, because this interface is very special. It is not in JDK, so it is in Spring, so not a Pujo. Then it has two special methods inside this interface. First, supports. Second, validate. The first one supports, because when you use this validator, you have to check the compatibility with your command object, because you cannot use this validator on arbitrary Java object. You have to apply on the right object. So this time we use the supports method for that. Then it has a parameter, class parameter. Class, here we need to compare the class content, not object. So here we know big Java object. So it is mainly store the information related to the object, but here we want the class level. So that's different. Class, because we want to compare the class level compatibility. The name, variable name, we call class Z, replace S by Z, because we want to use a different name than class. try to separate. But we also want to give the programmer information. So this is a class object. So that's the reason, many people like to use this class type variable. All right. Then is assignable from this special method, right? All right. So let me see. Yeah. All right. So this supports method. Check if the validator can validate target command object. Yeah. But you do not, call it by yourself. The container will check it. The container will check it and let you know if there is anything wrong here. Yeah. All right. So here, target command object connect to this validator in the configuration. In the next video, we will look at the configuration part. All right. So next, this assignable from method, then the main line to check the compatibility line. Yeah. So what's that? Yeah. First, so there are some cases. First, the class, this object has the same class as the command object class. The user, in our example, the same class, so definitely is assignable. Yeah. But there is another case. When it is a superclass of our command, they also assign, or is a superclass either the same as superclass. So think about, all right, subclass assigned to superclass, right? Yeah. Or, because here the meaning is pretty vague. Yeah. Pretty vague. One is subclass, one is superclass. When we assign subclass to superclass, it is okay, right? But when we assign superclass to subclass, so think about superclass object to subclass object. Is that okay? Yeah. It may not be okay, right? Yeah. So the subclass object assigned to a superclass, that's okay, right? Yeah. All right. So that kind of compatibility, also interface part, also interface, super interface relationship. Yeah. All right. So then after compatibility checking is passed, then the validation part. Yeah. So we get this target, which corresponds to the command object. Yeah. But remember, in order to get data from command object, we need to do conversion, right? Yeah. Where is the conversion? Here, we cannot see the conversion explicitly, but we can treat as a, behind the scene operation. Yeah. So when we need it, so we just use it. Yeah. So here, because we use this special method call, so we don't worry about the conversion. Yeah. All right. Validation utils.reject if empty or white space. Empty white space checking. That's a common way to check the data, right? Yeah. Empty white space. Yeah. Here, look at the parameter. Username, that's the property name of the command object. So the data from command object will be retrieved, and for comparison, checking empty white space. Okay, yeah. Then this part, yeah. All right, so errors, we know if there is a possible error, we will store in this errors object. Yeah. So then you pass here. So the error generated possible error generated will go there. Yeah. Then this part, you can see required dot username. What's that? Yeah. So we call the message code. Yeah. So in Spring MVC applications, we may need to use many different messages. When we use different messages, we want to store in a special file. So we call the resource bundle file containing all the messages. But each message, how do we refer to those messages, right? We use message code. Here, so there is one special message code that connects to a special message. But in this simple web application, we don't have that. We don't have the resource bundle file. We do not have, If the message code, message file not available, then the last parameter, the last argument will be used as the default message. Username is not required. That's the default message for this example. All right. So with this, then we can display error message. The error message, this is the error message. If the validation utils this class detects, detects violation, right? Violation. Empty string or white space string, that's the violation, then error message is displayed. So that's the simple validation logic. All right, so we complete 8.3.